fuck American Barbershop. Did you want to it? Did you just fucking say that? Did you seriously just say you're gonna hang me for my Friday? Take off your fucking mask, you fucking pussy.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Prestige Living Podcast. So with that, who do you want to be? Hello, welcome to Prestige Living Podcast, your channel that feeds you all the success stories, overcome hardships, and ongoing obstacles of the daily entrepreneur in Orange County. I'm your host, Jay O'Brien, with your co-host, Jordan Wilson.
Hola, Jay, ¿cómo estás?
And our guest host, Kane German.
Buenos dias.
Well,
we're full-blown Spanish today.
Well, let's do it.
I love that. Okay, so today our guest comes from the city adjacent to ours, Santa Ana. Now, for those of you who have not visited downtown Santa Ana in the last few years, I highly recommend you do. The entire area has gone electric with bars, nice restaurants, and in this case, a booming barbershop on the corner of French and 4th. It's called American Barbershop. I personally get my hair cut there, and this place, every time I enter, there's a line of people waiting as each chair is packed to capacity. In addition to owning a barbershop, our guest owns a beer bar and sausage house called Wursthaus that has been open for barely 2 months. He's extremely innovative, a huge risk taker, and is constantly moving forward. Without further ado, please welcome George Mendoza. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was really good. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
He's all blushing.
I know.
So,
I'm honored.
I got some questions. So, first and foremost, when did you open American Barbershop, and what were you doing before you did that?
I opened American Barbershop in 2010. And before that, I actually owned another American Barbershop in Corona. And then before that, I owned American Barbershop in Riverside.
So you've always owned your own business, or did you used to be a W-2 employee?
Yeah, I worked I went to barber school in 98, and I worked for a barbershop in Norco called Nick's Barber for 6 years. You know, before I went on and decided to open up my own place. I always knew when I got my license I was going to open up my own place.
Okay, so what does that look like? I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that cut hair and they go through, on a more mild level, the entrepreneur route because they need to find their own clients and maybe they're renting a chair and whatnot, so there is a little bit of risk involved. But it's entirely different when you open up a shop on your own and say, hey, I'm going to be dependent upon these barbers. I mean, what does that look like? How did the first one start?
Well, it was definitely scary. You know, when I started cutting hair at this barbershop in Norco, what I saw is there was a lot missing in our barber industry. Anybody that's a barber, that if you listen to this podcast, you'll know that in the 90s, the barber industry was in the dumps. I mean, barbershops were just left behind. Salons, supercuts, you know, all the chain cutting places had taken over. And I wanted to open up my own shop because I wanted to change the industry. I wanted to revitalize the industry. You know, I wanted to bring it back to what it used to be back in the early 1900s, 1920s, 30s, 40s. And I knew there was a huge demand for that.
Yeah, I see that when I go in there and people are using the straight razor and doing the razor parts and the clean shaves and stuff. It's awesome. Yeah. So what caused the change to go from one location to another to now Santa Ana?
Well, you know, when I started in Riverside, it was a 4-chair shop, and it started very slow, and it was very difficult finding barbers. The type of barbers, just to look, when I reflect back, 2 of my barbers were Vietnam veterans. You know, these guys were in their mid-50s, late 50s, bunch of maniacs. I love these guys to death. I mean, I learned a lot from them, but man, I mean, the customer service was not there. I mean, if they didn't, you know, you see the movies when you go into the barbershop and you got the old guys that just kind of, they don't give a rat's ass. Like, yeah. I mean, they just kind of give you, you know, you want like a nice haircut, you walk out with a military haircut, flat top.
The one size fits all.
You know, I had 2 Vietnam vets. I had, you know, a couple guys that had just gotten out of jail. One guy was a recovering drug addict, you know, but all great guys. But that's just where our industry was at the time. And it just started happening really quick, where I started seeing a lot of young men going to barber school. And you know, we kind of outgrew Riverside. This is when Corona was booming. I came across a great opportunity to open up a brand new shop right in a brand new center with a Starbucks. That was always my dream, is, you know, open up in a brand new shopping center in the middle of a wealthy area. You know, I was there, you know, I opened up that shop, if I could remember my dates exactly, it was about 2006. I was there about 5 years. Corona went through the housing crash, as you guys all know.
Yep.
And it was time to get the heck out of there real quick. You know, my whole shopping center literally almost went bankrupt, and You know, the barbershop survived, which was my barbershop, the nail shop next door, and of course Starbucks didn't flinch. You know, they just kept on cranking. And then that's when I knew I had to start making some moves because I was starting to find myself in kind of an uncomfortable place. But yet I saw the barber industry was growing, but I just knew I was in the wrong city.
So when you opened up that first place in Corona, how did you raise capital to do that?
My Corona shop, I did, you know, and that's a good question. I look back, my first shop was Riverside. I mean, I literally probably opened up that shop with like $2,000.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it was just, you know, the barber I bought that shop from, and I could go on and on about it. It was a retired barber named Jim Stone that had been in that area for 40 years. He literally almost gave me his shop. And for my second shop, I had bought a home in South Corona, a very nice house that I bought from being a barber and working my butt off. And, you know, like everybody else, I had a lot of equity in my home. I pulled an equity line and I invested about $120,000 into my Corona shop, which, you know, in a few years later, that money got into a very scary place because of everything going on.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I want to touch on. So you buy a house, you take money out of the house to start a business, and basically, if that business fails, your house goes away.
Well, that's a great question. I ended up losing my home.
Okay.
You know, I lost everything. When I pulled that equity line, I knew it was going to put myself in a very scary place. But I mean, it was, you know, I always tell people, like, how bad do you want it? What are you willing to risk? You know, I could have stayed in my small little barbershop and kept my house, but then I would have been miserable and I wouldn't have followed my dream. My dream was to open up a bigger shop in a wealthier area, and that's what it took. It took pulling every penny out of my house and eventually losing my home, and I ended up filing bankruptcy also.
And that was in 2008?
Like by the time, yeah, it was things got really bad. You know, about 2009, right before I made my way into Santa Ana.
Okay, so yeah, that's really interesting. So you lose the house in 2009. The Corona shop closes down, right?
No, I actually sold it. You know,
sold it.
Yeah,
okay.
I sold it. I knew. I don't know how much you want me to fast forward. Like I knew in 2009 I needed to make some moves. I started looking into. I don't want to go too far forward, but, you know, originally, you know, I was in downtown Santa Ana as a child, so I had always kept an eye on that area. I knew in 2009 that there was a lot of things happening in Santa Ana, and the reason I knew is because all Santa Ana PD, they all live in Corona. So all my clients that were Santa Ana PD, they were constantly telling me, "Oh, George, you should really go down to downtown. There's a lot of cool stuff's happening there. There's all these amazing buildings that are just abandoned, or, you know, just that you could lock down and possibly open up a shop down there."
So that's interesting. So that the transition of losing your personal home, selling the barbershop in Corona, and then it's like you've got something on the horizon in your near vision that's going to be, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to open a third one.
Couldn't believe it. I was like,
and with what money, and where do you live, and what's happening in your life?
Yeah. So at this point, I mean, I had just dropped over $120,000 into this Corona shop. I knew I couldn't sell it for $120. So, you know, I remember one night I had a really bad day. You know, this was now going into 2010. I had just a really bad day at the barbershop. I had a bad day with my landlord. You know, the landlords over there were just vicious. I mean, they kept raising my rent even though everybody was falling apart all around me. I mean, just vicious landlords. I mean, they didn't give up. They didn't care. They also, you know, had an investment they had to take care of, their shopping center. I drove down, I still remember the night, it was like a Tuesday night, I drove down to downtown Santa Ana by myself. It's like midnight. I'm just depressed, I don't know what direction I'm going. I get off the freeway on 4th Street, I drive down 4th Street, and, you know, I get to French and 4th, and I just see my building that I'm in now just empty, and it still had the Ritmo Latino signs. That used to be a real famous music store that was like a landmark for that downtown, and it was abandoned, it was empty, but all the Ritmo Latino signs were still there. And I get out of my car, I look through the window, and I'm just like, wow, this is freaking amazing. And the phone number's sitting on the window. I call the landlord that night, like at midnight. The next day he calls me in the morning, and he wants to talk about locking down a deal and possibly opening up a barbershop. And within 5 days, I signed a lease and locked it down.
Dude. So I'm gonna actually rewind. You said you sold your Corona shop, right?
Yeah, and I guess I could kind of touch on how that happened. After that night, after I saw this location, the next day I get to the barbershop, and I had 8 barbers at the time, and I just made an announcement. I said, guys, I need to have a meeting. I want to sell my shop who wants to buy my shop? I go, this is an opportunity. Offer me whatever you got, and I may take it. You guys know how much I invested here. If anybody could come up with anything, the shop's yours.
That's freaking admirable. Did you get any like flack from anybody when you told them you're gonna open up another shop after Riverside and then Corona, and then you kind of like lost your home and whatnot?
Oh yeah, when I told people I was going to Santa Ana, people thought I was crazy, and this is the reason I've gotten in a little bit of trouble with different people in downtown, because I think people kind of forget of what exactly was going on in that downtown, and this was 2010, not that long ago. You know, that night when I went to downtown Santa Ana, there was some interesting activity.
Oh, we were talking about that just last night.
Yeah, there was some very interesting activity going on. There was
what was going on?
Prostitution like crazy, all the way from French down to Broadway. People don't want to talk about it. I've had people get very offended because they say that how dare I come from Corona and say that our downtown was bad. I mean, you know what? Maybe you were home asleep by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I was there, you know, all the late hours from 9 to 3 o'clock in the morning, especially when I was building the shop. You know, you had problems with gangs, you had problems with graffiti and vandalism all over the street. But the biggest problem, and anybody born and raised in Santa Ana knows that 4th Street turned into full-blown prostitution. There was brothels, whether you knew about it or not. The building I'm in was a brothel.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, so when I told people I'm going to open up American Barbershop in Santa Ana, the first reaction was like, dude, you're out of your mind. I mean, it was unbelievable how badly people thought of downtown. But I saw something else. I mean, I saw an opportunity. I saw a downtown that was beautiful, these old buildings. I've always been into the old buildings. And you know, back in the day, Santa Ana, that was downtown Orange County, from what I understand. I mean, that's where all the courthouses, right? And all the federal buildings, everything's there.
Yep.
I think even on the water tower, it still says like downtown
Orange County.
Orange County.
And you know, and at that time, I didn't really know what else was coming. You know, I didn't know all these restaurants were coming. I mean, you had heard, but everybody talks that, oh yeah, all this stuff's happening. I literally locked down that location because of the building. I mean, you know how hard it is to lock a lease down in a corner historic building like that, right in the entrance of any downtown. I mean, it was just my common sense that told me that you have to jump on this. Who cares about the prostitution? Who cares? You know.
I was going to say. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. Well, this is more of a joke, but did you ever consider like American Barbershop and brothel?
Yeah.
Like capitalize on both markets?
Well,
Actually, dude, I go to Roland and he's kind of into that shit.
Well, there is a basement, and you know, and yeah, at the time that building was pretty interesting when I got in there. It was actually pretty interesting because I had access to the entire upstairs, and it was abandoned. And it's it used to be the Palace Rooms Hotel. And like I'm telling you, talk to anybody that was in Santa Ana, like in the 70s, early 80s. I mean, it was a full-blown brothel. And again, if somebody hears this podcast, gets offended, dude, these are facts. I mean, I've talked to people that were there, that went in there, and were customers there, clients. I mean, it was absolute facts.
Well, I was going to say, George, if you could maybe now elaborate on that and speak to the changes that you've seen in the last 5 years in downtown. Because I know, I mean, I've been like the arts district. You got the Yost Theater down there now, and there's a whole bunch of new restaurants like Chapter One and like the Playground and all that. What else? Like, just, can you speak to the changes since you're basically on the front lines?
I think first of all, starting from my corner, what I saw after I opened up my barbershop, the first 6 months, I'm not going to lie, I mean, a lot of the bad activity didn't go away. I mean, we've always been a shop, as you guys know, that stays open pretty late. You know, traditionally, all the businesses in downtown close around 7 o'clock. We're at our shop, you know, cutting hair and hanging out 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So the first year, I mean, there was still a lot of really shady activity going on. I remember the first year, all my windows, you know, my landlord replaced all the windows, which are very expensive. Within 6 months, every single window was graffitied. They etched the glass, and we're talking thousands of dollars of graffiti. That is another subject that people don't want to talk about. The entire street, like I said, from French Street down to Broadway, every single window graffitied, vandalism. I mean, the alleys smelled like urine and pee. I mean, it's just what it was.
So I have a question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being that it's just the worst place ever as far as safety goes and vandalism and all this, and then 10 being that it's like suburbia, what was it then and what is it now?
I think when I was there, and I guess it depends what hours we're talking about, because during the day you have a lot of, especially 5 years ago, you have a lot of really great businesses there. A lot of the traditional businesses that have been there forever, like the quinceañera shops, a lot of the bakeries. You had a lot of great family-owned businesses during the day. And during the day, I would say it was about an 8. I never heard of too many people getting mugged or anything like that during the day. But what was going on is the city was falling asleep at night. People were turning their back on that downtown at night. People didn't realize that at night a lot of bad crap was going on there. I saw it firsthand, and it's stuff that people can't deny. And at night, I want to say it was probably a 1 or 2.
And how about now? What do you think at nighttime it is now?
Well, right now it's a 10 all day long. It's as safe as it can be. I mean, there's just so much stuff open now, and there's so much patrol. And I think 5 years ago when I opened, I think, like I said, I think the city had kind of given up on their own downtown. You wouldn't see that many cops patrol, or if they would shoot through 4th Street, they would just kind of blast through, and even though something weird caught their eye, they just kept going.
Yeah,
and
you bring up a great point, because you said the city kind of turned its back on it, and this is 2010 and maybe prior, and even past that. In 2013, the new city manager came in, and I've personally met him and spoke with him for well over an hour. And you know him too, Kane?
Dave Cavazzo, is that guy?
Yes, that guy.
You guys should get him in here for an interview. That'd be actually pretty cool.
He's I was really impressed by what he had to say, because he comes across as a visionary. He comes across as a guy who gets things done. I was talking to him about businesses opening up in Santa Ana, and he was going through all the bottlenecks and traditional permits and things that you need to go through the city, all the archaic ways of getting things completed and whatnot on the city level, and how cumbersome it all was. And he just kind of came in from Phoenix, and he looked at it and just like, this is bullshit. This is, why are people who want to open up a business in our city, why do we make it so complicated for them? And I know firsthand things that he changed almost overnight. Like when I started getting my haircut at American Barbershop, everything was coin op on the parking meters.
Yeah.
And after I spoke with him, he said, yeah, when I saw that, I immediately changed it to have a credit card on there. And not only that, but have sensors on them. So if you load up 2 hours and you're there for an hour and you leave, the sensor detects the card left and it resets to 0. It's more money for the city. It's better for the local economy. It's stimulating growth. And now I go down there, and that's exactly how it was. It felt like in no time that changed, just because it was his idea.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I remember going to, I believe it was a city council meeting or a big meeting, and I was complaining about those meters, because all my clients were getting literally raped daily. Because a lot of times people don't have change. They have to run inside, get change. By the time they go outside, they got a ticket. And I remember saying, how is it that downtown Riverside has all the modern technology with these meters? Like, dude, downtown Riverside, we're downtown Orange County. We're way better than them. And how is it Riverside is more advanced when it comes to that? It's like shameful, right? I mean,
right. And downtown Santa Ana, they have just changed completely. I mean, you talk about the people who frequent Newport Beach, right? And they go to all these restaurants, all these bars down there. And that same crowd now on a Friday or Saturday night will say, what do we want to do tonight? Do we want to go to Newport Beach, or do we want to go to Santa Ana? And it's like 5 years ago, that conversation would have never happened. You know? And now they're talking about Chapter 1 and the playground. And all these different
4th Street markets now down there.
4th Street markets. Really
good. And every time I go into American Barbershop, and you know too, Kane, you go in there, and right when you walk in, every single seat's gonna be filled up. I tried going like a week ago during the week at like 11 a.m. I'm thinking this is the time to go. No one's gonna be here. Dead wrong.
Yep.
Packed. I mean, and it's not like there's 4 barbers there. They
have like 13 seats.
Yeah,
13
seats.
Started with 4 because that's all I could afford. Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about the business, George. I want to know, like, from Riverside to Corona to Santa Ana, now kind of coming on the upside of things, and you've seen your growth. You got 13 chairs in there. People probably are paying you rent, right, to rent a chair and whatnot. And this whole thing is booming with volume. So tell me a little bit about the business.
Well, first of all, like, if I could rewind back to 2010 when I opened, everybody in our industry that knew I was opening up in Santa Ana, they're like, you're out of your mind. You're never going to be able to charge more than $5 for a haircut in downtown Santa Ana. That was a little offensive to me, and that I think is pretty offensive to anybody that lives in the area. I mean, what are they saying, that people can't afford more than that in that area? Downtown Santa Ana isn't. I mean, there was some issues going on, but it definitely wasn't like a ghetto, super poor. It's definitely not Skid Row, for God's sake.
Yeah, and everybody makes it out to be that. And it's
it's not. It's the stigma. It's the stigma that once was and will stick with people's minds until it's until it's changed for a very long period of time, and then it re-identifies itself.
Yeah, there was a time when you had was it called the red line that would run straight through the downtown? Is that what was going on?
I think they're trying to do that again. When I talked to David about it, he said that he's getting that it's all approved to go through downtown.
They're trying to link up all the cities, right? Like
and you got people
exactly,
and you got people protesting that. I mean, this is what I'm telling you. The problem is down there, and you got people that want to protest every bit of good change that's happening. And what I told one person was like, guys, it used to run down 4th Street. I mean, let's restore it back to what it was, guys. I mean, it's
get
okay.
more people in all the businesses.
Exactly.
Get more people spending money. You know?
Exactly. So my business, I started off, 2010. I started off doing $10 haircuts because I just wanted to go in conservatively, and I was terrified of losing everything. And the first 6 months, I mean, we almost ended up on the streets. We almost ended up having to move into my in-laws because it was just such a financial burden, moving from Corona to now Santa Ana. I remember by 2011, I took my haircuts up to $12. Then next, we went to $15, then $18. As of 2014, we went to $25.
Yeah, when I first was going there, it was $20, and now it's $25, and it's not losing any business. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
And we didn't go to $25 to rip off people or rape people. It's just like people, they want to criticize businesses, but nobody knows what it costs to, like I was telling Kane last night, nobody knows as an owner the bills, the taxes, I mean everything just to keep those doors open. And then after I give 80% of my money to everybody else, that little bit left is for me to feed my kids and send my son to, he's actually in barber school right now, and it's like, people just don't understand. Even at $25, I mean, my barbers need to feed their family. I mean, it's just, we're in Orange County, for God's sake.
$25 for a haircut, it's not a lot of money. There's people spending, for men's haircuts, $55, $60.
Stop and think what one of my barbers sometimes spends on you guys, sometimes up to an hour.
I mean, you guys are very meticulous.
That's not uncommon, actually.
Yeah, and like I said, stop and think about that. I mean, it's people swear that, oh man, these guys are swimming in dough. I mean, we still got to work our asses off. I mean, we work hard. I mean, some of my guys are putting in 10-hour days. So I mean, so the barbershop, I think one of the reasons we've become so popular because we are a true barbershop. We do the straight razor shave. We got a bunch of crazy guys that work in there. Yeah. And more than anything is everybody that works there is extremely passionate about what they do, which in the past, some of my shops weren't successful because I had a lot of unpassionate people working for me. It was just kind of a job for them. Yeah. And so now if I don't see passion in you, I won't hire you. Just like any business, right guys?
Totally. So to bounce off of that, you totally hit the nail on the head with the passion and the great dudes. And it seems like you've cultivated this amazing culture in the barbershop culture that we normally see in movies. Yeah. Did you purposely try to do that, by hiring the right people, or it just kind of evolved into that?
Yeah, and definitely it comes down to my name, American Barbershop. I've always had that name. I remember the first barbershop, I'm like, what am I going to call it? Like George's Barbershop, or my middle name's Alfonso. Maybe I was like Alfonso's Barbershop, and I remember when I was in barber school, I had a book. It was called The Vanishing American Barbershop, and this talked about the vanishing American barbershop. There's so much history in the barber industry, in the United States that dates back, 100 years back, 100 and something years back, and it was part of the American culture, going to the barbershop, and that's what this book talks about, is how it was this great, kind of like a ritual, going to the barbershop on Saturdays, talking to your barber, taking your son to the barbershop, not to the salon with mom. I mean, that's not good,
You see that all the time at American Barbershop. I'm in there, and there's guys in there with their kids.
Yeah, or
and
even the moms.
They're lined up, Yeah, the moms too now.
Yeah, I had a mom, and it's such a great compliment. I mean, they drive in from Fullerton, and she's like, I used to take my son to my salon, and it just didn't feel right. I mean, it just didn't feel. She's a single mom. There's no other father figure, other male in this young boy's life, and she one day told me, she's like, I just want to tell you how grateful I am and how thankful I am of all your guys. Like every time my son comes to the barbershop, he leaves he's glowing. He thinks that you guys are so cool. He talks to you guys. You guys give him advice. You guys just talk guy talk. Yeah. That guy talk that's missing in his life. And she's like, it's so important for my son to keep coming here.
And you guys are very genuine and authentic. And one of the things I really like is when you said re-identify a barbershop and a barber. The thing I really like about that is that now in our millennial generation, everyone coming up and everyone's kind of starting to do things their way, right? They're not like, you know what, the baby boomers always did it like this, so we should probably just do it like this too. We are the biggest population that's ever been alive now, and so we're starting to control the movements that we want. So when you walk into American Barbershop, you've got music that is louder than any barbershop I've ever been to or any salon I've ever been to. I think every single person in there has at least 5 tattoos, right? I mean, like,
minimal.
everyone's tatted on their necks. I mean, pierced ears, pierced everything.
They're joking around with each other, yelling at each other.
And you know what? We finally got to a point, at least there, where it doesn't matter. You know, it's like people are coming in there because they're super passionate about what they do. Their trade is, they've mastered it. And we try and mimic a lot of that in the real estate realm with this brokerage specifically. You know, my Twitter handle on Instagram is anti-realtor. And you can see by my arms and whatnot, I'm tattooed, and the way I conduct my business is not this buttoned up whatever. You can be a professional and still be yourself.
Of course, I think people are looking for real people.
Yeah.
Not fake people.
Yeah, they can identify with that.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I think sometimes corporate America, like some of these corporate chain places, you know, I mean, you got to act like a robot there. You know, you got all these rules. You can't turn up the music too loud. You can't give your client a beer, for God's sake, because you might get sued. You know, and so nowadays we don't worry about that stuff. I mean, we just have fun in there.
George, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned about the mom driving her son in from Fullerton. Do you find that you have a lot of out of town people that are clients that come in, or is it a mixture of both?
And that's a good. You know, I want to say, God, 80 to 90% of my clientele is Santa Ana. You know, and again, we could just go on and on about these subjects because there's people in Santa Ana that feel like all these new businesses are not catering to the Santa Ana people. It's like I tell people all the time, I challenge you to sit in my barbershop on a Friday or Saturday, interview my clients. You'd be surprised to see that most of them are from Santa Ana, born and raised. And I love talking to all the different generations of born and raised people in Santa Ana. And like I said, I'm always really careful when I get interviewed because I screwed up a couple times in the beginning going to city council meetings. People ask me questions, and I didn't realize they were just throwing bait out there to put things in my mouth because, you know, I was the new guy in town. They wanted, you know, you got people that, and like I said, we'll get into that subject, you got people in Santa Ana fighting all the good change. And it's a very small population, but you got to be real careful with them. You know,
let's dive into that. Before we get into the newest venture of yours, you had mentioned something that had gone on in front of American Barbershop. I want to hear all about this.
Oh my God!
Give us the cliff notes on this.
Okay, you know, again, and I'll break it down. I'll make it as quick as possible. It was a Friday night last year. I want to say it was summer.
Yeah,
it was summer, and you know, and we're sitting there. You know, it's our busiest day. I got all my 13 barbers in there. You guys know my guys. I mean, and just to start off with, I think at the time, you know, we had one white guy, Pete, which just left us to go to a Long Beach shop. Loser
awesome.
Pete. Love the guy to death. Everybody that works in my shop is Mexican. You know, my clientele, I want to say it's 99% Mexican all day long. Mm-hmm. You know, and so we're sitting there, it's Friday night, 8 o'clock, and we just look down the street, we're like, dude, what the hell? There's like an angry mob coming our way. You know, there's cops following this crowd, and we're like, what the freaking hell's going on? And, you know, in Santa Ana, there's always been a lot of, you know, very friendly protests, and you're allowed to. I think you're allowed to protest and express yourself, but do it in a friendly way. As they get closer to my shop, I'm actually across the street at my restaurant that I was building at the time. And there's a girl with a microphone, and I'm thinking, oh, it's an anti-police brutality protest. And this girl on a microphone just starts yelling. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yep. Yeah.
This girl starts yelling, fuck American Barbershop and your fucking hipster haircuts. And I'm talking to my drywaller, you know, of course Mexican, because we're the ones that know how to do that the best. And I'm talking to my drywallers. I'm like, hey, ¿qué chingados está pasando allá? Like, are these people like yelling at me? ¿Me están gritando a mí? And the drywallers look all nervous. They're like, yeah, I think they're talking to you. And so they start like, I don't even know how they saw me over there, you know. And so they start headed towards the front door of my shop. Literally 50, 60. God, it was a mob. They had masks on. They looked like the Taliban. I mean, they had their faces wrapped up. I knew something was wrong real quick. I run across the street. I mean, I don't even make it to my front door, and I got this tall guy with his face wrapped up gets in my face. All, you know, he's like, "You fucking coward! You're a fucking coward!" I'm like, "What the?" I'm still confused. I mean, imagine you just get hit.
Right.
You know, I'm confused, and they start telling me, they're like, They're like, you fucking gentrifier, and you know, and you support PD, and you're a fucking gentrifier. I mean, they threw so much shit at me. I'm getting yelled at by like 20 people, and my brain's still like in slow motion. Like, what the freaking hell is going on right now?
I was just doing drywall a couple minutes ago. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly, right? And so next thing you know, I realized like, wow, these people, it hit me like, wow, these are the people that in the past have accused me, you know, are mad at me because I opened up a shop called American Barbershop and not Alfonso's Barbershop, you know, and so by this time all my barbers start pouring out. I mean, they see their boss out there ready to get jumped by freaking people. I look like freaking Taliban. Cops are skidding in from all sides. And so my crazy barber AJ, Marine, I mean, he's doing a haircut. I mean, you know, him and I were best friends. He goes running out there, and he's the one that kind of broke the ice. He's like, he just runs up to one guy like, take off your fucking mask, you fucking pussy. Here comes the Marine. I mean, this guy, you know, fought for our country, born and raised in Santa Ana, and now, I mean, he's just like, what in the world, you know, it was just a mob of ignorant people, you know, is what I saw at the time. Long story short, it escalated from there. You know, I mean, we almost got in a physical fist fight with them, literally like 12 barbers against a mob of like 50 people. And they were yelling every name in the book at us. They had cameras, I mean, probably 5 people recording us, cameras in our face. It was just confusing, it was chaotic. Long story short, it ends. And we're just like, what the freaking hell was that all about? You know, I go home thinking about this. I'm just like, the next day I start getting phone calls. I start, you know, like my barbers are calling me like, dude, are you reading the Facebook blogs? It's all over the internet. So they said the next day that they were having a peaceful protest, peacefully walking by my barbershop, yeah, effing right, with masks on, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that as they were peacefully walking by, we started throwing trash at them and calling them wetbacks.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I was freaking speechless. My barbers were speechless. I mean, as Kay knows, I mean, my mom and dad are immigrants from Mexico. My dad, 16, 17 years old in the late 60s, came across the border with the coyote 2 times. My dad was deported, hitchhiking home from work in LA. He jumped in a car with some crazy stoner hippies. They get pulled over. Next thing you know, he's on the bus back to Tijuana. My mom came across the border with my sister stashed under a truck seat, literally in a pickup truck, with my mom and my sister hiding in the truck. My sister like jammed up underneath the seat, wrapped in the blanket. I mean, and you're calling me a racist. You know, my in-laws, strawberry pickers in Irvine. You know, my mother-in-law, her knees are destroyed right now because she was on her knees picking strawberries in wet, cold mud for 16 hours a day. And you're gonna come up with some bullshit like this. I mean, me and my barbers were completely speechless, but the haters, the downtown Santa Ana haters, they ran with this. It got so bad that I started getting death threats at my barbershop. I had these freaking assholes. They called my shop, and I'm there with 2 of my barbers. We all pick up all the phones because they had been calling all day, and we're like, dude, who the fuck is on the phone? And we pick up the phone, and these guys are like, you freaking racist, get the fuck out of our city, go back to Corona. You know, and these people know nothing about me. They don't realize that, you know, while they were in diapers, I was in downtown Santa Ana with my family. I was that poor Mexican, Spanish-speaking family in downtown shopping at all the stores. And that phone call ended with this. They're like, we're gonna go down there and we're gonna hang you from your fucking American flag. And when they said that, that's when I paused. I'm like, did you just fucking say that? I go, did you seriously just say you're gonna hang me from my flag? I go, did you know we have young men and women in the Middle East, in Afghanistan and Iraq that are from Santa Ana dying for this country, dying for that flag, and you just said that? And I mean, I was speechless. That's when I hung up.
Nuts, man.
That's when I hung up. Next, you know, by that week, I had detectives. They had to keep an eye on us. I mean, it was pretty serious threats.
Did you ever think that someone was actually going to come in and cause physical harm to you?
Yeah, there was that. You know, I mean, of course, me and my barbers, you guys know those guys. They're just like, bring them on. I mean,
they're loyal to the bone.
Imagine also AJ. I have 2 veterans. I have Joe and AJ. They're both war veterans, and I mean, obviously very offended. I mean, can you imagine that? You know, very offended. I mean, we were all just kind of like, wow, did they seriously just say that? I mean, and obviously my barber's like, you know what, call the cops. It's just, we better report this because it was pretty bad. So I mean, I had my lines tapped for weeks, if not probably a couple months. All PD was just pissed off. Everybody caught wind of it, and that was like the lowest point I had ever gone to, where it literally was so discouraging that I went home. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it almost made a couple tears come out of my eyes when I actually set in. I'm just like, what am I doing wrong here? I mean, I've invested, thousands of hours into this downtown. I'm in the middle of opening up a restaurant. You know, my wife has a salon in downtown Santa Ana also. You know, so we literally now have three businesses in this downtown because we love this downtown. And we have people calling us, telling us these things. I mean, it was heartbreaking.
That story right there. I mean, the whole purpose of this podcast is really meant to inspire and kind of illustrate to people listening to this who are either entrepreneurs or thinking about owning their own business one day that there is risk involved. There are things that will make you feel very uncomfortable. And if you have a passion for something and you want to make a career out of it, it's no walk in the park.
There will be naysayers, critics, and cynics.
There's always going to be haters. And, you know, what we experience every day, and what I mean, we as like us as real estate agents and people that I interview on a daily basis, is that people are concerned with the sacrifice. You know, they drive a certain car or even a car or have a mortgage or pay rent. There's this bubble. There's this comfort level that they must have, and any sort of discomfort is like, I don't know if I should do it. And we're going from that to the polar opposite where it's like, yeah, not only did I risk all my money, but I also lost my house. And then I had a freaking mob of 60 people who wanted to kill me. And then I had death threats. And I mean, it's more than just money and sacrifice. It is so much more than that. And I mean, I think it's extremely admirable.
Well, right now when you said about the sacrifice and stuff like that, and also moving towards the Wursthaus, kind of going to a more positive note, you became this, American Barbershop became this prominent figure in downtown Santa Ana and such, like that niche market, the haircutting. What made you go into the Wursthaus?
You know, before I was a barber, you know, I worked in nothing but restaurants. El Torito, Olive Garden, Claim Jumper was one of my favorite jobs. I actually helped open Claim Jumper number 8 in Corona. You know, Claim Jumper, when they went public, they ended up with like 60 restaurants. It was a big deal. And so I always knew I wanted to open up a business, and at the time I wanted to open up a restaurant, but then I got into the hair industry because restaurants are not that easy to open. And so, you know, my 5 years I've been there in Santa Ana, you know, I had talked to my best friend. I'm like, one of these days we're going to open up a bar in this downtown. I don't know when or how. You know, the location was right across the street, right in front of my face, across the street from the barbershop. And it was a women's clothing store that was having a very hard time selling women's clothes there. And it was, she represented what was happening to the whole street. There's a lot of businesses that have been there in the downtown that just aren't doing well. You know, they're just selling the wrong stuff. It's the wrong kind of business. They're not able to pay the rent. One day I called my landlord. He actually owns the building across the street. I said, hey, is there any chance that could ever be a restaurant or a bar? And he's like, well, shit, I don't know. He's like, nobody's ever asked me. And so, you know, I went to the city, started poking around, and next thing you know, that's how Wursthaus became Wursthaus. You know, we just started asking questions, and it was extremely challenging because we had to turn a women's clothing store into a full-blown restaurant. You know, all the fireproofing, which got us into a lot of trouble, which is why it took us a year to open this place.
So walk me through this. When you walk through the Wursthaus, what does it look like? What's the decor? What are you guys serving? What are the employees like?
Yeah, well, Wursthaus, you know, I wanted it to be a little bit of a reflection of like the vibe. I wanted it to be a reflection of the barbershop. I definitely hired a lot of fun hip people, you know, and most of our employees there are all from Santa Ana. Just so everybody knows, because I've been questioned about that also. You walk in, it's almost like it looks like a walk-up counter. You know, the grill is in the front. We have beer taps in the front, and as you walk by the restaurant, people think that's all it is. You know, but people don't realize we have a hidden, almost like a speakeasy kind of secret big dining area in the back. And it goes after our whole theme is a German like beer hall. We have all German Belgian beers. We have about 20 different sausages. We have wild boar. We got alligator. We got lamb. I mean, we got all these. You know, when we're constantly looking for all these crazy new sausages, we're actually looking into like rattlesnake. Somebody told us to get. Got kangaroo, for God's sake.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you know, it's very casual. You order in the front, you seat yourself in the back. We just wanted a very casual place that everybody in Santa Ana feels comfortable coming to.
So I have to ask you, why sausages?
Well, you know, years ago, my best friends and I, we used to go to Oktoberfest. You know, in God, where was that? Alpine Village, is in Torrance or Carson. I mean, literally in our early 20s, you know, every October, because one of our best friends grew up out there, we would always go to Oktoberfest. And I remember back then saying, how cool would it be to open up a cool German place that just, you know, sausages, beer, and always kind of had that fun Oktoberfest vibe. Why? I mean, if you're going to open up a restaurant in downtown Santa Ana, and again, I mean, opening up another, burrito joint, taco joint. We have plenty of those already. And so to me, I wanted to introduce something different to the Santa Ana people, something that most people probably had never tried, like a good sausage. Everybody eats hot dogs, but I don't think anybody's ever ate like a wild boar or just even a traditional bratwurst.
And Belgian beers are amazing,
Yeah,
so I'm
Belgian
definitely going to
and
get down
German
there.
beers. I mean, how much more Bud Light and Budweiser do we need in downtown?
Other than this
No
one that's in
offense-
front of me right now.
Yeah, no offense to Bud Light drinkers, but
So you mentioned like the permits and stuff like that, the fireproofing and whatnot,
yeah.
and those are the obvious setbacks. Any other setbacks that are unspoken of?
Yeah,
Any sacrifices you had to make?
Yeah, Santa Ana and like I said, our new city manager knows. I mean, there are some serious issues going on in the planning. They just do not make it easy to open up a business, and everybody knows this. That opening up a business, let alone a bar with a beer license, is not easy. I mean, we were supposed to open up 2014 by October, and our inspectors just kept holding us back. I mean, they go in one day, they're like, oh yeah, just do this, do that, and you could open. They come back, they got something else.
And meanwhile, you're paying rent, right?
Yeah, no, well, luckily our landlord, he
Okay.
held off on the rent as long as he could possibly hold off.
That's cool.
The biggest setback is we had to, double layer our ceiling. After we do that, then they hit us with some handicap issues. It just didn't stop. And it's like, why? And the city manager actually got involved. I mean, which he was tremendous help. He finally got involved and was like, guys, I mean, just make these guys a list of everything they need to do so they could freaking open and start paying taxes to the city of Santa Ana.
Exactly.
I mean that's what it's all about here, right, guys? I mean, and I know he asked a question earlier of the changes in downtown, the 4th Street Market. That was a very controversial thing that happened down there. That market was, I don't know if you remember, Ken, it was like a swap meet. They sold, there was a quinceañera shop in there. There was they sold CDs in there, DVDs, hats, embroidery, and and at one point it was a very busy little swap meet. All Mexican-owned businesses. My landlord also owns that building, so I tell people, imagine if that's your building and people inside could barely pay you rent. What do you do? Do you sit there and sink and drown, or do you do something about it?
Right.
So my landlord had to make a very tough decision, and he evicted everybody in there. And this is when he came up with that vision to do a 4th Street Market, which is what all downtowns are doing right now. This is nothing new. I mean, it's a formula that's proven to work, but my landlord got himself into a lot of hate mail, a lot of, they just stay out of the city council meetings because people right away took it as a racial thing. Oh, you're kicking out all these Mexican business owners.
Gentrification.
Gentrification. And
Yeah, they
it
don't see
wasn't
the
that.
long term in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the market for some of the businesses in there. I mean, come on, guys, DVDs, CDs in 2015. I mean, let's
Right.
be real here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it just wasn't happening. So, I mean, like I said, unless you own a building, you don't know the bills behind keeping a building from falling over.
Yep.
Somebody needs to pay for that.
Yeah, these are employees and even that, just people, just regular consumers. They don't see it in the eyes of the business owner. I have a couple questions to close, George. So we ask every guest this because I'm always very curious. You've got your hands in so many different things, and sometimes it feels like there's not enough hours in the day. What does your morning routine look like? Like, what time do you wake up? What's like the first hour of your day look like?
Well, before I opened up the restaurant and started coming home at 5 a.m, I'm trying to get back. I'm trying to get back to my normal routine. Is even though I get home late, I'm in CrossFit, and there's about a CrossFit downtown Santa Ana is about to open in downtown, and I think it's going to be one of the coolest CrossFit gyms in Southern California, just because of where they picked a really cool location on Main and 5th.
It's already got like a sweet community online too.
Oh yeah, and right now they have a temporary location. But I like to wake up at least three times a week, get up and go to CrossFit as early as I can. It's very important. I have a daughter that's 11 years old and a son that's in barber school. It's important for me to wake up because I know I'm not going to see them the rest of the day. I get up, eat breakfast with them, sit down, chat. I try to drive my daughter to school as much as possible. Just that 30-minute drive to school, me and her, we turn on music, all her, teen pop, whatever music. I'll sing along and make her laugh.
Yeah, you will.
Those are all like very memorable things. I have 2 Scottish Terrier dogs. After I drop off the kids, take the dogs around the block really quick. I get on. I have a longboard. I used to skate, so I'll go around the block on my longboard. Sometimes I'll be in my suit, like the way all those barbers. We got the traditional old school barber look with the tie and the vest. So my neighbors will see me skating by with dress shoes and a full-blown suit with 2 Scottish Terriers pulling my board. And then I get to the barbershop, check on my guys, make sure, just continue on my day. But I think it's before I get to downtown is, you have to have that personal time, even if it's a couple hours of the morning, to spend some time with the family and the dogs, because dogs are our family, I guess, also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote or maybe just a philosophy that you live by, something?
I wish I could give credit to my wife follows a writer, and his quote that he put on his Instagram or on Facebook one time, it says, "Find something you love and let it kill you."
Bukowski said that.
Charles Bukowski.
Yeah, and I think, that I love that. I might even tattoo that on me. I think because it's the truth. Because that's literally, it's like kind of the story of my success is like just the barber industry. Now this restaurant. Yeah. If you want to open up a restaurant and you don't love the restaurant industry, you're not going to make it. You won't make it. Your heart has to be in it. I don't care what you do, your heart has to be in it. You can't do it for money. It's got to be passion driven.
So with that, what is your biggest struggle to date? There's a ton of them that you've listed. What do you think is the biggest struggle that you've had to overcome so far?
Oh, God, I think keeping my family together at home. I think it's definitely the wife and I, it's been up and down many times, through my adventure. Sometimes, I look at her like when I was going to open up the restaurant, just that look she gave me, like, holy crap, George, here we go again. Yeah. And then, that's, I think, definitely keeping the family in order at home. That's, I have to find that balance a little more right now. It's definitely a little bit unbalanced right now.
I think it's tough for any business owner. You obviously pour a ton of time and money and energy and passion into something that you want to see move forward, and with that comes sacrifice, and so I completely understand. What's the most inspiring book that you've ever read, or a book that maybe you gift people often, or something that just, someone who's thinking about starting a business where it's like, oh, you definitely got to read this book?
Yeah, I think the book that, like I said earlier, that inspired me, that I give to other barbers, is the book, The Vanishing American Barbershop.
Cool, very niche.
Yeah, and I love that one. Because if you do read it, you can learn a lot from it, because it talks about trends. And imagine if you go back to the early 1900s, all the different stages of gentrification in the United States. And the barbershops are they're a reflection of a lot of history, of a lot of changes that happened in the United States. And so I really like that book a lot.
So you just said history really quickly. So whoever's listening to this, when you're done, go on YouTube and type in American Barbershop History Lesson.
Oh, there you go. I forgot somebody made that video. That's right.
Yeah, great video.
Really cool. Good video. Get a vibe and get a feel for what the barbershop feels like.
And the last question I have for you, George, is what is your biggest success to date?
My biggest success to date, it has to be American Barbershop. It really is.
Is there a specific moment that you remember just thinking, like, God, like, whatever milestone or whatever it was that happened that day, you're thinking, shit, this is a really, really memorable moment?
I remember one of the first days when all my 13 chairs were staffed with barbers. And if you're in my industry, you see a lot of very half-empty barbershops and salons. Somebody will build a salon with 20 chairs. There's 5 people that work there. I remember, this must have been in 2014. It was actually like a year ago. I remember just realizing, like, wow, I did it. I have this shop that has been busy from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., all 13 barbers cranking with a 2-hour wait, and we're charging $25. All my guys are going home today with money in their pockets so that they could feed their families. And I always say, if my barbers aren't successful, I'm not successful. I judge my success on how successful my employees are. And I think that was when I realized, like, I succeeded. I did it. And I want to open up one more shop, believe it or not. I know that sounds insane, but it's just I've been keeping an eye on LA for a very long time, and that would be kind of like, I think, my final adventure in this industry.
I don't think you'll ever have a final adventure. You're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, and it's gonna keep going and keep going, and you're gonna put your signature on everything, and they're gonna continue to be successful, and you're just gonna keep putting your stamp on it, and we see it every day. We see it at the Wursthaus, we see it at American Barbershop. You've got your loyal fan base, you've got your loyal employees, and everyone sees that passion and the authenticity there, and you just keep that going. You know, we want to thank you so much, George, for being on the show. Your story is very, very inspiring.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, so George, where can people get a hold of you? So, number one, people who want to get a haircut, what do they do?
Yeah, I have 13 barbers that all of them are Insta famous. Some of these guys
They got their Instagram handles on there. Dude, they are Insta famous.
Yeah,
Roland's got like 20,000 followers.
I got one guy that's got like 50,000 followers. It's insane.
It's crazy.
I know one of the biggest things I tell people, and just go to my Instagram, El American Barber.
Juxtaposition, L American.
Yeah, El American Barber. Yeah, and then also I have a website, AmericanBarbershop.com, which is under construction. It's I'm almost ashamed of myself. All these years I just haven't finished my website, but I think now's the time to do it.
But people can just Google American Barbershop, find the phone number, set an appointment, or just do a walk-in.
Yeah, American Barbershop Santa Ana. Yeah, because the shop I sold years ago in Corona, it's American Barbershop Corona.
Okay, American Barbershop Santa Ana, and then the new place, Wursthaus. Can you spell that out for everyone listening?
Yeah, it's Wursthaus.
Wursthaus. Okay.
And order their drunken fries, dude. Those are so good.
Yeah, so Wursthaus downtown Santa Ana. Wursthaus DTSA is the Instagram.
And what are your cross streets?
It's 4th and French.
4th and French, American Barbershop and Wursthaus. Again, thank you so much, George. We really appreciate you being on the show, man. It's been great having you.
Well, thank you.
And
If you would like to be on the Prestige Living podcast or know someone that would be a great guest, go to www.prestigelivingpodcast.com. We'd love to hear your story.
As a reminder to all of our listeners, this podcast is fueled by RE/MAX Prestige. RE/MAX Prestige services all of Orange County for tenants, buyers, and sellers looking for VIP service, zero pressure, and optimal results. Whether you're looking for your first condo at $150,000 or selling your $5 million luxury home, we are your solution. This week's testimonial comes from Jason Bauer, who writes, "When beginning my search for a home, all I heard were horror stories regarding the shady, unscrupulous nature of realtors in Southern California. Within seconds of bringing up my search with RE/MAX Prestige, I knew I had found my agent and was in the best of hands. My agent didn't sell me on anything. He spent hours upon hours tailor-fitting a solution that would fit my needs while still managing expectations and advising on market conditions. Trust and accountability are as important to me as they are to him. From day one, he did his absolute utmost to show he would be completely transparent and educational throughout this entire harrowing process. If it weren't for his guidance and support, I probably would not have gone through with it. RE/MAX Prestige was truly there every day and every step of the way, making sure I was 100% comfortable, aware of the processes, and protected in them. Everywhere from a 6 a.m. phone call to a 10:30 p.m. on a Friday night finalizing an offer. As of this writing, I have lived in my home for close to a month, and he continues to follow up to ensure quality and satisfaction. RE/MAX Prestige is truly the best. My agent is a realtor. He is a trusted advisor and friend." So, there you have it. Another example of our core philosophy representing our clients' best interests at all times. Like us on Facebook by searching RE/MAX Prestige, and feel free to reach us online at prestigelivingpodcast.com. Thank you so much.